Welcome back to my darkroom. Today we're going to look at what tools you will need to get together to align your Enlarger. Enlarger alignment is one of the most critical ways to make sure that you get sharp prints edge to edge and corner to corner. Without that, you risk getting blurry images on one end, sharp on the other. Or, even worse, perhaps a keystone effect by having converging lines instead of a squared print. So, today we're going to look at what tools you need to align your Enlarger. Now, this is not going to show you how to align the Enlargers. We're going to do that model by model in future videos. So today we're just going to look at what tools you will need in order to do so. Now, before we begin, if you would like to help support this channel, you can get lab towels such as this down in the description from my Zazzle store. I have a Teespring store with t-shirts and other items that are brand specific, and I have just started a Patreon now that we have passed 5,000 subscribers, and I thank each and every one of you for joining us. Alright, so tools that we will need. There are some basic tools that almost every Enlarger is going to need, so let's show those first. We are going to need screwdrivers, a nice flathead, a nice Phillips. This is a standard number 2 Phillips, and then just a medium flathead screwdriver. These are indispensable, and almost every Enlarger will use them at some point. Some Enlargers will need Allen wrenches, or hex keys as some people call them. Now, whether or not you need a US or imperial size versus metric, that really depends on where your Enlarger is made. So if you have a European or Asian Enlarger, you are most likely going to need a metric set. But if you are using an American made such as Omega or Bessler, then the US set will probably fit best. Then you're going to need some wrenches. Now, you can get just an adjustable wrench, and this does quite a bit, so this will cover almost everything that you need. But if you want size specific, box opened wrenches will work fine. You will only need 2 or 3 at most, and it's usually the most common sizes that your Enlarger uses. I find, for example, with Bessler 23Cs, various models, I need 1/2 inch and 9/16. But again, your model will require different things. And then I would also recommend a pair of pliers, because you can never have enough things that grab things. So have something like that handy and you should be okay. Now we're going to go over to the Enlarger, and we're going to talk a little bit more about more Enlarger alignment specific tools and how you're going to use them to get the various parts of your Enlarger aligned. So come on. The first method we're going to talk about is the target negative. Now, the target method is not exactly the easiest method, but it is perhaps the cheapest. Now, there are target negatives that you can purchase. None of them are going to be new. Nobody makes them anymore, but there are some floating around on eBay, and probably still some in camera stores that you can still find and purchase. The idea behind a target negative is it's a piece of film you put in your negative carrier, and it projects a bunch of different grids and lines that you can then make sure are sharp in all 4 corners. And then that's it. Once you're done, you're done. You can make one pretty simply by getting the fully exposed and developed film leader from just a spare roll, put it in the negative carrier, and with a fine needle, scratch little lines in each corner and maybe in the middle as well. And then just make sure all 4 are sharp. So you're going to manipulate your lens stage and your Enlarger or negative carrier stage until they're sharp. However, if you can move both lens and head, that means you could possibly get things sharp but not square. And that's where you might need to do a little extra work. In order to make sure that you are getting it sharp and square, that is, without converging lines. And by this, if you're familiar with a view camera, you can manipulate the front and back to get things sharp, but also change shape of your image. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. The Scheimpflug principle would allow you to get converging lines from a square object but still be sharp. We want to avoid creating that issue with enlargers. I know enlargers like this can do that, Durst, but then even with some simple enlargers, you could accidentally do that. So to avoid that with the target negative method, you project the image and then manipulating the negative carrier first, you want to get all four sides exactly square and parallel. So to do that, you'll want to measure your diagonals and make sure it's square in that regard. You might also want to check just the length and the width and make sure they're equal. So in carpentry, you can make sure that something is square by checking the diagonals. However, you could accidentally have converging lines this way, and that would give you the same diagonal each way, but you would still have a trapezoid. And then if you just measure length and width, a rhombus also has correct length and width. So you don't want to do it that way. Instead, I would check diagonal, length, and width, make sure all opposing sides are equal, and then you're square. Then manipulate the lens to get all four corners sharp. That should give you parallel stages here to your baseboard. A little bit complex, but it is cheap. The next method we're going to talk about is the measurement method. The measurement method requires two pieces of equipment, and only two. Now that's aside from the hand tools, so you're still going to need that to actually loosen and tighten things up. But to check your alignment, you're going to need just two things. One very rigid ruler, so this is one that's 1/8 inch thick, about 3 millimeters, and it's rigid, so it's not going to sag. And then just another ruler. I wouldn't use this one, it's too flexible for the first part, but it'll work for the second just fine. The idea is you're going to put this in your enlarger where the negative carrier would go. Doesn't matter how long it is. This one's about 2 feet or 60 centimeters, and then this one's about 1 meter or 3 feet. And you just measure it on this side, so make sure it's down on the baseboard, and you're going to measure where your bar on the top is from the baseboard. Measurement doesn't matter in terms of actual height. What we're concerned about is then checking this side and making sure it's equal. If it's not equal, then you have a tilted enlarger head. So you're going to measure both sides and then adjust and measure again. Adjust and measure again until you fine tune it and it's equal from the baseboard on both sides. Then you're going to turn it and do the same thing, front and back. So you're going to tilt it front and back until you get alignment to the baseboard front to back. Finally, you're going to need a way to hold this against your lens, and you're going to measure here. One side and the other. And you're going to fine tune its position. Once you have done that, turn this 90 degrees and you're going to measure front to back. So the concept is if it's parallel to the baseboard, it'll be equal measurements. If it's not parallel, then you'll have a shorter dimension here than there. Doesn't matter how far from the center you measure. Once it's level and equal, it's equal. It'll be equal here, 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 wherever. That one requires some patience, but it can be a little frustrating just to sit there and measure, especially if you have no means of holding it against your lens other than your spare hand. The next method we're going to use is the bubble level. The bubble level method is pretty straightforward. You need a bubble level. So the first thing you have to do with this is make sure that your baseboard is level. The other methods didn't require this to be level at all. And that's because we are aligning everything relative to the baseboard. Now, however, if we're going to use a bubble level, we have to make sure if this is level, this is level. in order to be parallel. So get some shims, get some washers, whatever you need, and make sure that your baseboard is level side to side and front to back. Now there are devices out there, Omega made some and Bessler made some, that were specific to their enlargers that used a metal bar with a bubble level you could adjust on one end. So you would place it on the table, you would adjust the level until the bubble was straight, and it didn't matter if this was. You would then transfer that up and adjust the head and negative stage until the bubble was level, and that would make it parallel. You can make a device such as that pretty simply if you want to get the tools for it. Otherwise, level this first, then move on. Once you have this level, front to back, side to side, take your bubble, put it up here where your negative carrier would go, so I'd actually need to lift my head a little bit to do it. Oh, get in there. Here we are. And now I'm going to adjust this until it's level. Then I would need to do the same front to back. Once I have that, put it against your lens and adjust side to side and front to back. And that will align your enlarger relative to the baseboard to make them all three parallel. Again, a little bit of patience is needed, but tools are very simple. The next method we're going to look at is the double mirror method. The double mirror method is not very complex in concept, but it can be a little odd at first in practice. To do this, you need two pieces of mirror. There are brands out there that make these devices, but they are two front side mirrors. They are not regular standard backside mirrors like you would get at any mirror shop. Instead, these have the mirror on the front surface of the substrate, glass, acrylic, whatever they are. And you're going to have two pieces. So we're going to use this one as the base, and we're going to put it down here. And then we have one on the top, and we have a target that's etched or ground into the mirror, as well as a hole in the center. And that is your eyesight hole. So you have one front surface on the bottom, and then one front surface in the top, extending out from your carrier. We want to make sure it's in there. There we go. And then we want to make sure this is square under it. And what you do is look through the hole, and you will see that circle and the hole in the middle reflected here. Now, if you've ever looked at two mirrors back to back, you will see that you have an infinite tunnel. And that tunnel, if the two mirrors are not parallel, will drift to one side or the other. And that's the concept we're using. I'm looking at the reflection of that ground round target in this mirror through the hole. And I should see an infinite tunnel of circles. If I don't, if that tunnel drifts one way or the other, then this is not parallel to here. So I'm going to adjust the enlarger until that tunnel moves and it becomes an infinite line, never ending and never swinging to one side or the other. Then I would need a way to get it attached to the lens, move my target, and do it again. So not a difficult method at all, but it is a little bit different in concept. And it can be hard to find these two mirror devices. So if you can get them, they work very, very well and very accurately. The last method that we're going to look at is the laser method. The laser method is also a very simple and easy to use way, but it can be a little expensive and difficult to find the machines to do it. So I've got my laser here, and you have to make sure that the laser is exactly perpendicular to the base, both x-axis and y-axis. Once you do that, you place this in your enlarger, And there needs to be a piece of glass or mirror reflecting the dot back down. So usually you will attach this to or replace the lens and then use something in the negative in place of that. The concept is fairly simple. The laser beam, if aligned properly with the baseboard by being perpendicular, will be directly up. It will strike that piece of glass and bounce back down. If the enlarger is misaligned, then the dot will be off to one side of center or the other. So you would adjust the lens stage or the negative stage until that dot moves exactly to center. Once it is pointing directly back at the laser diode itself, it's aligned. The laser method is very quick and easy, it's very repeatable, and if you have a lot of enlargers to align like I have to do, then it makes the work very, very quick. I can do 20 enlargers in like an hour. But with the level or measurement method, it would take all day. So easy to use. I like this method, but it can be difficult to find or construct your own laser with the pointer exactly perpendicular, which is very, very important to get this correct. And that should get you started. So again, just some basic hand tools, screwdrivers, wrenches, that sort of thing, will get you most of the way there. Then you have some very specific ways to check the alignment. So you can use a negative with some nice little sharp scratches in the corners, levels, rulers and measuring tapes, mirror reflection devices, laser devices. Any of those will work. You need to find what works best for you and your budget, and then what your patience level will kind of allow. Now, if you are in your own home darkroom, don't worry about anything super fancy. You can get away with just the simple bubble level or ruler ways. They're going to take a little bit more time, but with some patience, you can get it just as accurate as any other method. If you are in a gang darkroom or a university darkroom setting where you have to align multiple enlargers multiple times, then you may want to use something like the two mirror or the laser method. I found when I was aligning university darkrooms, I had to do 20 plus enlargers every semester. There was no way I could do it in any sort of timely manner with the slower bubble level and ruler method. So I used a laser and it was fantastic. So use what your patience and budget allow. So in the future, we are going to look at specific models of enlargers, and I will add them as I can get my hands on additional models. So I will see you next time. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you then.